Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. My guest on the podcast today is Kirk McKenzie. Kirk is an award-winning smart first responder technologist providing strategic community risk reduction with next-generation partner and solution development. However, he is also a 34-year fire service veteran, 9/11 Go concept developer, supporting international teams of subject matter experts advising, speaking, and an author to the government. We're going to be talking about lots of subjects today. For the past 15 years, Kirk McKenzie has been working around 3D technologies for smart public safety and firefighting and first response. It really does raise the question, how do we have 8 billion souls on the planet and 4.5 billion of them are connected, yet 150,000 perish every single day? The tool of choice for firefighters is two-way communication, radio, phone number, landline, yet in every day we have apps for everything. Ride sharing, Deliveroo, e-scooters, dry cleaning, food delivery, central heating, the list just goes on. How do we move our industry forward into the next generation of technology? In our conversation today, Kirk gives us a buffet of innovation and creativity of things he has come across, things he has supported on, developed on, and helped bring to market. But today isn't a sales pitch. Today is around how do we change the way we think? How do we drag those technologically nervous individuals in our sectors into this new technological age? Now, 30 years ago, when all firefighters began to have handheld radios instead of just the one incident commander company officer, it was incredible. It was empowering. It was just absolutely a revolution in how we could deploy resources, get organized and controlled, and instigate our tactical plan on the incident ground. We're only too aware that we have a tremendous shortage of aspiring firefighters around the world. Organizations, services, companies, volunteer companies are unfortunately closing their doors in certain places of the world. And one thing that I always feel perpetually frustrated about when I see these incredible young people with innovative minds, with a drive, with a passion coming into our services, is that they are sometimes and often met with the stark reality that we are still operating with some very primitive technology in comparison to what they will be interacting with on their day-to-day basis. We need to update our systems, we need to update our technology, our equipment, and we need to fully embrace this technological revolution. One of the things we're going to be talking about in our conversation is the see-through technology, which is one thing Kirk has had a lot of involvement in. So let's hear a little bit about how that technology was created, what the thought process was behind it, and how it's helping firefighters in different parts of the world right now in its final stages of development. So before we get into it with Kirk, let me introduce Robert Downey Jr.
Technology. We're at the dawn of a new age, the age of AI, artificial intelligence. Tons of folks are working on it, right? So it raises the question, do we even want to be superhuman, or is imperfection what makes life interesting in the first place?
At what point do we start trusting AI in matters of life and death?
So it was a smoldering fire that just filled the whole house with smoke, and you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. You literally had to feel your way up the stairs, totally blind search. Yeah.
Every 2 hours and 45 minutes, a U.S. citizen dies by fire in their own home. We've lost more than 3,000 a year consistently for 30 years.
The Worcester fire. 3 guys go in, they get lost, 2 more go in. I mean, before you know it, they finally had to okay, we're not sending any more guys in there because they're all freaking lost.
On his radio, a commanding officer heard 2 firefighters desperately crying out for help.
Mayday, mayday, we're running out of air. Come to the door so we can see where you are. And we did that. And we went beyond the door, and we yelled, and we had lights, and they were inside somewhere that they couldn't see us.
All those guys who died in that.
When we go into a structure that's dark and smoky, the biggest challenge is the visibility, ability to navigate is a challenge. And often firefighters have become disoriented and then they run out of air. With the challenge of smoke and having no vision, I knew that there was a possibility of changing that. That's when I finally met this routine.
I guess the best way to describe myself is I'm infinitely curious. I like to solve problems. I was in disbelief that firefighting in a smoked out building involves training their personnel to revert back to feeling around a room. The problem that See-Through is trying to solve is really flipping the lights on for people operating in zero visibility conditions.
The concept of See-Through was the helmet that had enhanced audio, enhanced...
I see ya. I'm on my way.
We have a mask, and we have a thermal imaging device that sits on the side of that mask, and we process that in a small computer.
Sam and Omer created a mask with special glasses clipped inside. Thermal imaging cameras stream video from the firefighter's helmet into an AI processor. Using edge detection algorithm, the mask detects subtle changes in brightness to predict shapes invisible to the human eye, like a wall hidden by smoke, or a kid hiding under a bed.
This is insane. I won't believe this, man. I can see pattern on the walls. I can even see the badge on your helmet. Okay, stay close.
Medic 71 is on scene, smoke showing from the second and first floor.
And a victim trapped on the second floor.
See him, 3 yards to 2 o'clock. I got him.
Command copies, 1 victim coming out of the second window. You need EMS. Medic 72, you're going to have to take patient care.
As soon as I got in, I could see the outline of the room. As I stepped in, just kind of took a look around. I could see where the victim was and the outline of the door. I mean, hands-free.
We had fire attack, so I assume that into
It is kind of like, like Iron Man, you know, being able to see through the smoke and having everything so clear-cut. It's pretty cool.
Working on is really a game-changing tool that completely has the potential to transform how the work here is done.
There's a good chance AI will continue to enhance us in ways unknown. The question then becomes, if it does, what do we do with our newfound superpowers?
What does the future of firefighting look like? Let's start with that massive ball.
Yeah, you wouldn't be the first to have asked, Pete. Certainly, it's an inspiring, imaginary place to go. And sometimes people ask me, "Well, what do you do, Kirk?" And I say, "Well, I'm a public safety advocate of technology, strategic partner advisor, stakeholder engager, and really I'm an Imaginarian." What are we imagining? So, Pete, I think the future firefighter, first responder, emergency medical service provider is going to be equipped with all sorts of wearables that are technologically enabling to save lives in ways we never might have imagined with two-way voice. So...
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together. Yeah, firstly is that aspect of describing yourself as, and I read it in one of the articles about yourself as a first responder technologist. And that's almost an oxymoron in some things, because first responders and their relationship with the technology is a very wide spectrum as we look across the world. And I can certainly say here in the UK, we move at somewhat of a glacial pace when it comes to our integration with technologies. And would you say America at the tip of the sword with it? I mean, you guys and girls are bigger and it tends to be more funded. And I also actually, in all honesty, think that you guys have a greater level of respect and admiration for your first responders. But I don't know if I'm just looking at that romantically from across the pond.
Well, and I'd say with other colleagues in the EU and and down under and around the world, there's a bit of a jealous. It seems to be an international jealousy thing. I'm jealous because you're doing something with autonomous systems or like AI wildfire nozzle, perspectives. Where what if you could just drive across a grass fire and the nozzle puts it out? We don't. There's no need for us to get on the ground all the time, at least. Save our energy. So I'd love to say that we're the tip of the spear, the head of it, but it's a multi-factor equation, Pete.
Yeah, that's the aspect of it, isn't it? Comparison is the thief of joy. When we look about the evolution of communication and technology, because one of the interesting things we were discussing before we started here was the evolution of communication and interpreting the world around us. And one of your bigger innovations and stuff that you bring to market is around that evolution from the original two-way communication, which in itself was revolutionary once upon a time.
Well, indeed, there's several things trains of thoughts I've already started here. One was if wishers were horses, then we could all ride. And the evolution from two-way voice, I certainly remember when only the company officer, the captain or lieutenant, had a radio. And when everyone got a radio, then it was, that'll make a huge difference with the loss of firefighters in the line of their work. And then we found out, it's complicated. It's great because they do have a radio. But there's so much more that still needs to be done in what has traditionally been a laborious thing. Regardless of technology, first responders are going to sweat on the job. It's going to be hard work.
But I think of this when I think of agriculture as well, though. Like, there will have been someone similar to yourself stood at the edge of a field watching farmers working hard, laboring in a field and going, I'm sure there's a much easier way you guys and girls could be doing that. Do you know what I mean? And when I see the evolution and the sort of engineering leaps forward that agriculture has taken, I feel like we're still sort of dragging our knuckles in a lot of our tactical approaches with firefighting. Well, and I say that with respect. It's impressive. But there was also a romanticism about doing it the old way and getting yourself dirty and, that kind of builder approach to just getting the tools out.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective, certainly. And I honor, appreciate, and admire our tradition and the romance of first responders, that those in the business before us and now and in the future come forward in a healthy humanitarian effort, which I appreciate. And as you say, to the farmers or anyone who's laboring in the field, now there's tractors that have AI-enabled laser weeding tools. The autonomous tractor or autonomous equipment drives over the fields, zaps the weeds. No need for herbicide.
But the joke is, if Henry Ford had have asked the farmers what they want, they'd have said bigger, faster, stronger horses. They would never have said, the wheel and the engine and everything else.
I want an electric vehicle.
It's a totally different way of thinking.
Yeah.
So take me back to recognizing that we had been making progress, but there was still a long way to go in terms of the way that we tactically operate in the job.
I was introduced to three-dimensional technologies about 15 years ago, and something called a laser scanner, or LiDAR, light detection and ranging. And now smartphones do this natively. And one moment. The tool was measuring 5,000 measurements a second at the time. And a few years later, I was using the device to scan a cadaver in a fire death class. Yeah, very gritty work, and thank you to the forensic anthropologists out there that are still involved in it. And some colleagues assisted in 3D printing this scene to show that we could preserve perishable evidence in fire investigation. And then I shifted. So about 7 years ago to, well, how could we use 3D technologies to save lives? And I was invited to the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco, and 30,000 gamers were there. And that's not, back in the day we had pinball, and we had a game called Pong, Atari Pong. But other than that, no gaming for me. But I looked who was going, and some big enterprise teams were attending, and I thought, well, those teams know where callers are in the time of need. Just in 2D, right? At the time, I was working in a rural community, and we might spend 20 minutes trying to find a patient who was critically low blood sugar and hadn't been seen in a few days and was in a remote location, and just trying to find the caller was hard. And the big enterprise teams and communications teams, they know in part where folks were. And again, this is saying now, almost a decade ago on this, that I shifted gears and started having conversations about what's next. And I met with some of them, and they shared with me that, when wildland fires happen and we have multiple fatalities, dozens and dozens of souls are lost, they have some data. And there's this delicate dance, and how do we figure out how to share that while respecting their privacy? Is it appropriate to share it? Should they have an opt-in opportunity to share their location? What if people wanted to 3D scan their homes, either scan or photogrammetry or other tools that can map our home in 3D? They'll do that to see if the new couch will fit from the big box store.
This is the irony. Like you say, when you look at, I think we're at the place with technology now where things are colliding. Do you know what I mean? When you see satellite navigation colliding with vehicles, and you see, music systems colliding with, I can't think of an example, but like you say, people that are measuring up their kitchen, or even, I know there's a few PPE companies where they do full body scans, don't they? And it will just automatically size you. And I just think, wow, we should be embracing this, because it's like it's not moving in a numerical fashion. It's not binary the way that technology is advancing now. It's taking leaps. These sectors are colliding, and then just it gives birth to a whole new way of thinking.
Indeed, it's not a linear thing. And whether you watch proper football or American football, that now we have spatial computing in sports where it's being real time broadcast in 3 dimensions. It will end in 4D, meaning spatial temporal. It has a space and it has a time. You can rewind in 3D in sports and be there in VR, be on the 50-yard line.
It's crazy.
Or mid pitch line for golf, cricket, football, rugby, any sport. That's possible. So how do we turn our domain, the public safety first response domain, into a live spatial computing ecosystem rather than simply two-way voice? Because and now we see teams go into mission critical push to talk, which is great. Okay, we can connect broadband to traditional, say 800 megahertz or other radio frequencies, or 4.9 spectrum. Okay, great. So maybe we have more robust voice. Maybe we could go internet protocol for voice and mission critical push to talk. But that's still voice. You and I happen to be doing a podcast, but we can see each other.
I'll have to pull us out of this rabbit hole for a second. For people that don't understand what we mean by push to talk mission critical, could you just zoom out ever so slightly because you spoke there about tapping into different communication networks to adopt for first responder use. That is something that will be very foreign for people. Can you just de-chunk that a little bit? Because I know you guys and girls are a little bit further ahead than us.
Well, the bottom line is we all want to move forward as reasonably quickly as possible, because, say, in the U.S. alone, there's 700,000 calls a day to our emergency response centers, our public safety answering points. And about 99% of those work out all right, meaning that people survive. 1%, they don't. So that's about 7,000 U.S. souls a day who are lost. And now, we're not going to save everyone, but could we save one? And around the world, I think the rate is something upwards of 100 souls a minute are lost. And a little more than half of the humans on the planet are connected. Of the 8 billion souls, there's about 4.5 billion are connected, but on 50 billion devices. So as we move from basic land mobile radio, right? We have towers and repeaters, and we have heavy radios on our equipment, and we key up the microphone, and okay, great, I believe I'm transmitting. And then hopefully we get a copy, a read back from the other party. Yeah, engine one, copy, you're stretching the line and making an attack. And then break, engine two, water supply, backup line. And it's over the old school radio, if you will. Now we have the ability with mission critical push to talk, or even non-mission critical. Like, how do we? One agency I work with is working on, we want to go push to talk, if only for the fire inspectors or, public safety or the public education groups who aren't out there putting the wet stuff on the red stuff. And so the concept is that we have a high-powered talk-around or two-way trunked radio system that also allows us to go over broadband, like have a hardened phone that is digitally enabled, that has location and has compute capability, both natively on the phone, at the edge, mesh network, backhaul capabilities, internet protocol I see some teams starting to slice and dice. In other words, being able to transmit over various systems, right? Because sometimes if you're in a big, heavy concrete or steel structure, the radio doesn't get out, but it might have boosted Wi-Fi in it. So how do we use a smart hardened phone to get out over Wi-Fi and then blend that into
What's
LMR?
the barrier for having big open talk groups? I'm very much the irony. I mean, I run a podcast, but I know little to nothing about technology and voice communication methods. But like, if there were 7 other people on this call, we could all speak freely with a good Wi-Fi and have a conversation. Like you say, the whole push to talk, wait, can't interrupt, or I can interrupt for a priority message like we do in the UK. It's clunky.
Well, it makes me think, you know what? Do you have any folks who are down at the station now? I do. Like, I have some friends I could text them and say, hey, come up on the call with Pete and be on the podcast with us across the radio. Could any of them even get here? I doubt it. That with the radio system couldn't even get to our podcast in any way, shape. I mean, yes, we know some people that could probably get there. And for me, I'm going to say it's the Imaginarian. I am not full disclosure, technically competent radio expert, but I'd say the first place to look would probably the 3GPP. It's an attempt at a global standard, so we can all start moving down that road for mission critical push to talk, LTE, mixed capabilities with radio. But frankly, Pete, I just want to move beyond voice.
So take us beyond voice. Where is that taking you so far?
Yeah. Well, you might have heard that there's an enterprise team that just launched an a new headset thing. Some might call it augmented reality, mixed reality. They're using the term spatial computing, which is what I've been a proponent of for almost 10 years. Actually, it was this year in a few months where I'm right at 10 years where I first imagined, was at a 3D conference where they have vehicles that map, they're measuring million measurements a second to map the roadway in 3D, which is how autonomous vehicles operate, right? They live map, and they've got a machine that's doing object recognition. And so I imagine, gee, if there's these very small, like fit in the palm of your hand scanners on the vehicles, if we could put one on a firefighter's helmet and it was real-time sensing at 100,000 measurements a second or more, quarter-inch accuracy at 150 feet, couldn't that signal then be converted in some way over the eye? And at the time, I didn't even know the term augmented reality, but I thought that there must be a way to then put it right in front of our eye. And yeah, and so to me, that's what's
a quarter-inch accuracy at 150 feet. Now, I suppose actually when you say that, for a moving vehicle, that's actually entirely appropriate. But like the way that autonomous driving works, they are so much further ahead than what we need anyway. We're like, because we're not going to be moving at the pace they are. We obviously have the human being still interacting with it. Therefore, we don't rely on it being accurate enough for as much kind of spatial awareness and for it to compute what that means visually to the movement of the vehicle. Like you say, we could regress that back several steps simply to have that that spatial recognition software. Because I have seen that. I have seen seen several videos of the product that you're referring to. So when did you first see? When did you first see that in use? When did you first see? Where did it come from? For people that won't know the history of it, where was the first place you saw it used?
Oh, all right. Well, and let me. I was actually referring to some small group named Apple, who's come out with the Vision Pro headset, and where, you know, if you go anywhere on social media, there's quite a lot of chatter about what's happening with that. And so it will be, people today are testing this before they go to the big box store. They've ingested their living room in 3D, and they're testing to see if the couch is going to fit and how much spaces they're going to have on either side. And they're going to click through the various colors. The team I think you're referring to, Quake Technologies, was started by a Volcano Explorer and a guy doing a master's thesis for industrial design who worked with the fire brigade and came up with this crazy idea. What if you had a smoke diving helmet, is what he called it. And I spent 1.5 years trying to get a hold of him. And the Volcano Explorer was like, you know, when you go in a volcano, it's dark and smoky and there's ash in the way, and I'll just get the thing the firefighters have. But it turns out we didn't have one. And so Omer, the designer, and Sam, the Volcano Explorer, got together and said, look, let's build this. And finally, 1.5 years later, I got an email back. And I said, well, and they said, well, do you want to see it? And it was version 1, prototype 1, very primitive. But the idea was to take a small infrared camera, you know, right? We carry around, most agencies carry around thermal imaging cameras. Captain carries one, but they've got to pick it up and look around. And I don't know, last high-rise fire drill, it was just drill. Last high-rise drill I went to, Pete, I weighed my gear, it was 140 pounds of gear. And guys and gals will say, well, I don't want more stuff to weigh me down. I said, yeah, but I don't want to crawl down the dark. And I've retired from active duty, but I'd rather have it in front of my eye than have to pick it up. In any event, so 2017, I had imagined it a few years previously, but had no idea how to get there, and they had already built the prototype. So I put it on in a dark training tower, and lo and behold, I can see the environment, the edges of all the material around me, and now they're, I think, on version 14 and coming to market.
What was that like for you? Because something with omitted to talk about so far is you've done like 30 years in operationally hands-on work. Talk to me a little bit about where your career started.
Well, I'm all my work's been in Northern California, and I started now about 35 years ago. I spent 32 years with boots on the ground, and mostly municipal, a little bit of wildland fire, not so much, but I spent 25 years in the Sacramento area, and I think I'm about 10,000 calls total, mostly municipal firefighting, but of which 85% are medical, and then there's vehicle collisions and a variety of other, anything you can imagine we might have gone on. If I didn't, some of the crews I know went on them.
What was basic training like for you to seen this incredible evolution of search and rescue technologies and approaches? It's such a wonderful, I always say, as terrible as everything seems sometimes, it really is the best time to be alive.
Indeed, and huge irony in Shift, I didn't care for technology.
Okay.
I liked to bicycle and sail and human powered stuff. But now through the irony that I'm interested in the team we're talking about is produced a product called See-Through, and the group name is QuakeTech, and it's a long way from 35 years ago that I remember being in the academy, and I was doing construction work, building houses at the time, and we were told everything you thought you ever knew about ladders, forget. And I thought, well, we've been working on 2- and 3-story houses on like 30 feet off the ground and stuff. And I quickly learned that I needed to forget everything I'd been taught, because we were going to be using the 45, 50, 55 foot, and eventually at the end of the academy, the 65 foot wooden ladder, all 375 pounds. And so we still are going to have to be good at the labor side of our work. Operationally, we have to be good for when our radio goes down, we have to be really good. When vision systems go down and spatial computing go down and the Internet of Things and the machine learning and AI enabled first response systems that are being built, when they go down, we have to be able to fall back to our basics. But it's certainly it's an interesting position to be, not just imagining, but realizing these things coming forward. So the team that we were talking about, it was really just a pair of electric-enabled glasses that took the infrared signal, ran it through a compute package, and then projected it onto my eye. Then we went to in the face piece, right? Inside this SCBA face piece. And then we realized, well, that's going to tie us to one SCBA manufacturer. And on wildland fires, we don't use SCBAs. So then it became, it needs to be helmet mounted. And that's where it's an interesting journey to watch that team and others move along the progression of iterations and their TRL, Pete, the technology readiness level. So when I first looked at it, it was a TRL of 1.5. It was beyond an idea. They had an early prototype, but it was not a minimum viable product.
No.
And so it's taken a number of years, and compliments to the team. They've not just worked hard, they've worked incredibly intelligently, have support from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and a couple of key enterprise teams, and it's super exciting to see them.
In other news, this episode is brought to you in partnership with MSA Safety. Today we have them to thank for the improved firefighter safety through connectivity in their brand new connected firefighter system. At the center of the connected firefighter platform is the MSA M1 SCBA with telemetry. You can view battery life, air pressure, and estimated time remaining either independently on the M1 itself or from the Luna connected device screen. Also, still with the air status, alarm information, search status, and all of this provided to the incident command for confident decision making during the scene. That integrates straight in with the Luna system, which is a wireless all-in-one device creating an independent search and rescue network, providing edge detection, enhanced personal thermal imaging, while simplifying post-scene reporting and data retention. One of the key parts of the Luna is their FAST system, the Firefighting Assisting Search Technology. This combines directional and distance information with thermal imaging to help find separated teammates and decrease response time. It actually connects you to the other crews in the vicinity for a unified search during the time of mutual aid by instantly notifying the network of Luna devices when there is a downed crew member, allowing for a prompt search and rescue. All of this then plugs into the FireGrid system for cloud-based connectivity, real-time information, and data-driven decisions for the incident commander. It enables you to see the exact location of your firefighters on the scene. And it doesn't require you to be sat on the station. The MSA Hub then provides a wireless gateway straight to the cloud, enabling wireless on-scene data for local and remote incident command for additional eyes on the scene. MSA are truly taking massive strides in the future of improved firefighter safety through connectivity. MSA is dedicated to increasing safety in the fire service through technological advancements. Various feature enhancements, new products, partnerships, and integrations will provide additional capabilities readily accessible by products, software, and services in the brand new MSA Connected Firefighter platform. Now back to the show. What has the appetite and receptiveness been like of some of the first responders? And this is only one of many things in the sectors that you work in and the things and the innovations you discuss. But what's it been like feedback for it? Because I think, we've spoken in the past about Flame as a company that we've had on and speaking about virtual reality training simulation, and how some people love it, some people hate it, some people, there's very mixed reviews.
Well, and you're still on the line, right, Pete?
Mm-hmm.
Still running your burning buildings, putting wet stuff on the red stuff?
100%, brother. I'm still on the job.
Well, before I answer,
I just look really old. I'm only 33. I've got another 15, 20 years doing this, yeah.
Good on you. Yeah. I'll leave my chronological advancement figures out of this for now, but I've got you by a measure, let's say.
You're winning on that one. I'll never catch up, I don't think. But anyway.
I didn't get into the late 20s. So you answer first. What do you see? And Flame are also friends of mine.
So the Flame I love. I love it as a compliment to the training that we do practically. So big thing in the UK, we are very sensitive around decontamination now, around the toxicity and the carcinogenic effect that the profession has on firefighters. Very sensitive about that now. And so we should be. But Sweden, America, Australia are a long way ahead of us with this. And the pendulum has recalibrated, I think, in some of those nations. And please correct me if you feel differently. And what I mean by that is they've recognized the risk. They've done the research. They've put decontamination procedures in place. They encourage it and police it, fund it. But it doesn't limit their ability to practically train. So in the UK, we've started doing less and less live fire burns. There's a lot fewer live fire burn units around the UK. Again, a myriad of reasons. Societally, people don't like having them near residential areas, and that's where a lot of our training development centres are across the UK, so that's a challenge. So there's been a lot of synthetic smoke and a lot of gas rigs, which again, this was the great thing I was speaking about with James from Flame. It's like that in itself is a simulation already. Do you know what I mean? And it's not like the real thing because it doesn't behave the same way. Smoke doesn't behave the same way. Gas doesn't give off the same byproducts as a live fire does. So we're already in the simulation world. But then when we move to virtual reality, I think it's a really incredible way to pause live training, rewind, talk about decision processes. I'm a big fan for it, not as a replacement, but as a complement.
Very well said, I'd say. And well, there's a lot to pull on there. And when we were in James, one of the brightest guys I know, certainly, Dr. James Mullins, for those who might not know him, at Deakin University. And he was out here for a project that I did, you might see in the background there, for NASA JPL to help feed their AI program called Audrey. This might be worth chatting about during the call, but he had recorded the fire we did in 360 video. Now, unlike traditional burn boxes where we bring in pallets or hay and we burn cellulose material, we don't burn plastics because the heat release rate is inconsistent with the survivability profile for firefighters in the training, and there's the cancer exposure and so on. The NASA burn, we had a traditional fuel package in there. To train their AI program, and we were 1800 F at the floor in less than 2 minutes, 50 kilowatts a meter squared, and he has
1800 Fahrenheit. Did you say?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
In less than 2 minutes. And so when we train with wood, we'll never get those sort of
No, that's what I'm saying.
temperatures, and
Yeah,
that
all of the
heat release
different
rate
products of manufacturing now. There's such an acceleration of an actual burn inside a compartment now is way. So we're already, like you say, in simulation now, burning pallets and straw and hay, and we burn 2x4 and block board over here. It's not realistic.
That and has anything to do but realism to fire. Yeah, yes, we could talk about flow path and ventilation profile and heat load, but really, of the few working structure fires I was in, they were not consistent with the burn box heat release rate of wood. Now, but I said to. And so he's got the 360 video of this, and I'm saying that I'd even heard of another crazier 3D technology, a solid state LiDAR that could measure millimeter accuracy at 1,000 feet. And I said, does that seem right? And he said, well, is it even physically possible with the known speed of light? And I'm getting off on a tangent here, but just trying to compliment him on his brilliance is. He breaks out his phone and he does a little something on his calculator, and I'm thinking, well, speed, light's like 180,000 miles a second or something. And what do you mean the known speed? Is there an unknown speed? I don't know.
He'd have lost me long before that.
4 nanoseconds a foot. So, 4 nanoseconds a foot. So it is theoretically possible. It is physically possible. Wow. I said, okay, good to know. So if we need millimeter accuracy at 1,000 feet, I know another team. Now, so he's third generation firefighter. One of only 2 people I know who'd survived a flashover in real life, and has the skill set to build this tool, this immersive learning tool, which is to supplement our traditional tool set. And there are other immersive learning environments that we can do, and all training is in some way synthetic or staged or whatever. It's not only emergencies are emergencies. Let's keep it that way. It's safer for everybody.
Yeah. And
so to your main point was, I think, what do I see? And it's you and me. What do we and the other folks, whether they're startup or big enterprise teams bringing solutions, what do we see as far as adoption goes?
Yes.
What are our pressure points? What's
the appetite to integrate this globally? Because it's something I think would be incredible.
Well, and it's quite, it's a quite complex environment. Some would say we're an industry that's difficult to get into. We're small market.
I was about to say, it's the small market thing. Often the juice isn't worth the squeeze in the fire sector because it's not big enough. Do you know what I mean? To get to saturation point where it becomes profitable, especially like the UK is tiny. It's tiny. That's why we're like the poor cousin of a lot of technological revolution in the UK. When you look at what's happening in Formula One and aviation and things like that, we get the 4th and 5th version of it when it eventually becomes wide market affordable for us.
Well, I'm grateful to Sam and James and their work in those domains, and some others that are doing good work just for us. And what I'd like to encourage, because there are challenges, but I will say there's a lot of interest, especially, not to make it a generational thing, but the younger The folks that grew up gaming, who understand, who code, right?
Yeah.
They write code and they use AI to design code for them. Like they're just all over it. They're like, what's taking, the dinosaur leadership so long to get their act together? So with their encouragement, and then I'd also say on big corporate teams like telecommunications teams, look, there's several million first responders in America, but there's 320 million Americans that are not first responders. Let's build solutions for them, for their phones, for their homes, to make them digitally enabled, smart community risk reduction, like smart city designs, make them enable them to escape harm because they have an application on their phone that has a 3D model of the theater, the school, whatever other public building they're in.
Have you
and
seen
they know their exit pathways?
The product, is it called 999i or something like that? Does that ring a bell? Basically, we had a gentleman called Apollo Girolabos. He is a data analyst and technologist from London Fire Brigade in the UK. And London Fire Brigade is the biggest brigade in the UK, and they have the largest technology team there. And he was talking a lot about artificial intelligence. He was talking about language learning models, but he was talking about possible tactical applications at incidents. So, for example, to make this a lot easier to describe, a member of the public calls in an incident. They say, I'm stood outside X building on this street. The emergency services can connect live to their phone, get a visual straight away on the incident, and then use an AI algorithm in combination with the language learning and getting all the information from the person to say what the best response is, what the workload, capacity, what the predetermined attendance needs, what the correct tactical approach would be in that building, immediately source a map, and residential information about that premises. And all of that could be done before the crew even gets there. Do you know what I mean? And he was talking a lot about that, and I thought, wow, because when I joined, and certainly when you joined, it was talking about the size up in the first 5 minutes, and we still talk about that now because we haven't really moved along much in about 40 years. But when he said that, I thought, because all of that technology is around already, it's just marrying it all up to manifest itself into a single off-the-shelf product. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, indeed. Absolutely. And I like to think of it as if it was our turn to cook and we're working at the big station, and I got to work at a rescue station. If we had interns and a ride along, we'd have as many as 12 people in the station. And, I'd go to the store and, maybe I get some shallots for pasta and some garlic, and we get some fresh broccoli and basil, and let's get some pine nuts and some fresh olive oil. We'll make a pesto, and we're going to need some bread, and let's do an olive bread. It'll come out of olive bread, and I'll be sure to get extra butter for that and some Parmesan. And so we have the ingredients now to build smart first response. It's putting it together. We're at the point, I think we've got a hot pan and the butter's sizzling, and it's time to drop that shallots, and that's where we are. And so to your point, you actually made me think a little bit of what I had not thought of. Two teams I want to mention. One is Good Sam, which is out of the UK.
Okay.
So nod to, I think it was a trauma doc or an emergency room doc who said, the way we're doing this needs an update. And so he's enabled a system where caller calls in and dispatch sends them a link. No need for an app, but it is called the Good Sam app.
Yeah, I've just pulled it up now. Wow, okay.
And
this is interesting.
Yeah, and it goes live video. Now this is for emergency medicine, and if it say if someone's as a bystander for someone whose heart has stopped, they can give instructions for CPR, and they can say what if the rate and depth of compressions is sufficient, or it needs to be faster or slower, deeper, not so deep. if it's someone who's alert and oriented times 4 and is calling just to say, you know what, I've been sick for a few weeks. I think I've got bronchitis. I need a prescription, but my vehicle's out of order or whatever it is. I'm not able to make it to a doctor's office to get a prescription for some medicine. And the machine, through AI and computer vision, knows the patient's pulse rate and can, with significant reliability, detect their stability. In which case, then the dispatcher can say, okay, is really all you need is a lift. You don't need an ambulance and a fire apparatus, which is typically how we run in the U.S. Send a fire engine and an ambulance. And then they could get a digital token for a private transport and keep the emergency apparatus available for true emergencies instead of really just a priority visit to the hospital. To the doctor's office, not to the hospital. And I think San Antonio Fire Department in the U.S. has had some incredible success with this.
Yes, that's who they've got as evidence of their sort of case study, isn't it? So I'm just looking at it now, and we'll put this link in the notes for people to kind of look if they want. Because, and this, I say, Apollo spoke to me about this, but I knew it would already be a thing. So just for people, this says about... The Water Fire and Rescue Service is to provide the most versatile video platforms for fire and rescue. One-way video runs concurrently with the emergency call. No need to hang up and restart the video conference, which is not practical and dangerous in an emergency. So open any caller's phone camera in less than 10 seconds. It locates the caller instantly. The video can be forwarded to the officer in charge close to the scene, instantly identifying the suspect, enabling staff to see what they're about to enter. Don't need to seize the phone. The evidence is stored, date and time stamped in real time. No need for officers to attend low acuity calls. We often get smoke scene. So we'll get tipped out in the area and we're just fucking driving around for an hour. Can't find anything. And this Good Sam app, I'm going to contact them. It'd be great to have them on the podcast as well. So yes, there you go. Another example of something that's already... Why the hell don't I already know about this? Not that I'm important by any stretch of the imagination, but I speak to people across the UK every week, and it astonishes me. And I also attend many fire and rescue services in the UK to train and assess. This has never come across my radar, Good Sam.
Well, brilliant. And as much as I'm amazed, the same for me. I keep coming up on experts who, know 25 or 30 people that I work with, and yet I've never met them, and they're doing something I'm not familiar with. And this is the amazing thing, is that it's not just that we have the ingredients to make a really amazing meal. It's that we've got the whole grocery store at our fingertips with technology. And you brought up if we can put them in the notes, I would like to send you maybe a dozen or more links for your listeners to go and check out. But just today, I see I got an email blast from the International Association of Fire Chiefs indicating that Orange County Fire is launching a video to 911 technology. So I need to look into, okay, what system are they using? So we need these sort of things as a minimum. Everybody needs to be aware of them, and the opportunities are just amazing. There's a couple points. One was getting back to the NASA program Audrey, which was funded by the Department of Homeland Security and led by the team at the Jet Propulsion Lab, and they said, we need some more thermal data to train our AI. So over a couple of days, we did these 5 fires for them, and it fed their AI. And so they, you and I and, veteran firefighters can watch a video and maybe in a matter of a few seconds, based on the pressure of the black smoke and, the thermal column, and we're like, oh, that thing's going to flash. Or, we see a video of somebody goes and they make the door, they open the door, oh, that thing's hot. All it's going to need is that oxygen. It's going to flash. And, well, the AI program is there now and what if they could predict it? If we could predict it, say, 3 or 4 seconds before it flashes, what if they could predict it 60 seconds before? or 2 minutes
Oh yeah,
before.
it'd be so quick because, like you
so
say, run the algorithm,
we'll put some
the
links in the
size,
chat.
complexity of the building, the rate and color of pulsating smoke, where in the layer, where's the heat layer? What's the color of the windows? Is there any? It would run that. I mean, I just feel like so stupid when I talk about this sort of stuff because the rate at which it would run that algorithm, it would be so accurate down to probably a second, 2 or 3 seconds as to when that would be likely to flash. And it would also tell you the best area of access, where to vent it from.
What to do, especially like in a wind-driven fire. What are we going to do? And if there's an option for people to share their location, right? If we're having calls for rescue in the structure, we have a known rescue. Someone's trapped in the back bedroom, but we don't know the layout of the building, and we don't know the condition of the patient. And so sadly, people are texting their loved ones to say goodbye. So in that moment, if we could have we can, it needs to be done to integrate that people can communicate directly to the truck crew with the circular saw who's on the other side of the wall, who really is highly motivated, educated, and trained and capable of cutting a hole in the wall. They just need to know where. And so these are the opportunities that are so inspiring. And so I'll give you the links to NASA JPL's program, Audrey. And it makes me think one of the teams is doing live 360 video where each pixel is geo-referenced and has machine vision capability for object recognition. Well, yeah, we start getting, cloud compute capabilities that, what you were just telling me, I'm like, oh, wow, I know it's happening for EMS now. Oh, there's so much more we can do.
Today's podcast is powered by our partner Lifelines and their revolutionary approach to functional hydration. Just like in firefighting, water is essential for body function, but studies show more than 80% of firefighters are dehydrated. A 25-year study findings from the National Institute of Health showed poor hydration to be linked to early aging and chronic disease, and even mild dehydration results in significant negative impact outcomes including headaches, exhaustion, rapid pulse, irritability, and poor cognitive function. A study conducted by Yale University showed that participants who were just 1% dehydrated had a 12% increase in errors when performing tasks that required cognitive flexibility. In addition, dehydration is shown to worsen mood and attitude, contribute to confusion and poor decision making, and negatively affect memory and judgment. In other words, you really don't want your incident commander, firefighter, or for that matter any first responder on a critical scene to be even slightly dehydrated. Mild dehydration occurs when a person is just 1.5% dehydrated, a condition that does not even trigger the thirst response in most people. So just imagine how quickly a firefighter or any first responder can and does become dehydrated in their day-to-day duties, which is why I address my hydration first thing every day with Lifelines. Go into the notes for this episode and specifically check out Lifelines Hydro Fuel and Hydro OG by clicking in the notes for the podcast for a clean energy solution designed for those who demand more from their day. Now back to the show.
One team I know is looking on, or has done some great work on the computer vision being able to identify a firearm through video. So what if a firearm shows up at a place that it shouldn't be?
That sort of stuff for marauding terrorist, firearms incidents, being able to detect that in a crowd would be a hugely, and I imagine this is already being used, given how much CCTV activity is across the world.
Absolutely.
But it's almost an elitist system because, again, I'll repeat myself, but the first responders, I think the public would assume we have access to the best technology and the best resources. I almost feel a bit of a fraud sometimes when I think about the very rudimentary tools that we have available to us at times.
Yes, and I definitely, well, we did have the best tools in the beginning. The fact that we had a two-way radio when I started and all phones were hardwired. There were no cell phones, right? And I mean, homes did have cordless phones fairly early in my career, but they only had a reach of maybe 100 feet or something like that. So we had the best, but tech is moving so quickly now. And so, and I think they say, well, if a new fire truck is $1 million, oh my gosh, and I started to look at the numbers because I felt badly about that. And then I thought, well, divided by how many citizens are in the community, that worked out to, I think it was $20 a citizen. No, I'm sorry, it was $4 a citizen over 20 years. So, I did the math on, well, how much did we spend each year? The budget for the fire department was $253 per person per year. And to have 40 people at your disposal 24/7 for $250, that's a pretty good insurance policy, in my mind. And back to the computer vision. Anytime somebody takes a smartphone and puts for a selfie mode, puts a little green line around it, there's computer vision object recognition. The phone knows it's looking at a face. And that's the part of autonomous vehicles are doing object recognition. And what is the probability? We'll put some links in the chat on this too. But what is the probability that we're correct that the machine is correct and what it believes that is? And we get into an interesting dialogue, Pete, all the time about, well, should there be a human in the loop?
Yes. So this is an irony when
university research
we're talking so much about driverless cars, yet we're very passionate about continuing to send people into space. I'd always thought we'd reverse that as quickly as possible, because space is very difficult for humans to survive in. We're really not designed for it. And as exciting as it is, and I'm still a very young man, but I probably think it's very unlikely I will go to space. I'm not smart enough to be an astronaut, I don't think. But I don't know why we would ever send another human into space. We're spending so much time focusing on driverless cars. Why is anyone in an aircraft outside of our atmosphere ever again? Surely that doesn't make any sense. Am I being stupid there? Please tell me you disagree.
As an old, a former tall ship sailor, I'll just say, well, I don't know if they might have said that, in earlier generations in exploration of the globe. Well, why sail off in a boat to go look for? I don't know. That's outside my domain.
Right. Yeah. Actually, that is very small-minded of me, because the idea of being an interplanetary species is very exciting. I suppose it just still feels so very far away for me.
Oh, and yeah, it does. I think we'll have computer vision for first responders, right on their helmet before we have interplanetary species.
Hope so.
But that's just a guess. I'm imagining.
So take us back to the different types. So people won't know at all what edge detection is. I know we kind of touched it earlier. Just explain for us and go into a little bit more detail, if you feel you can, on how the systems work for spatial recognition.
I don't know if I'm going to get into how they work, but we're all familiar with thermal imaging cameras, and that we have a distinction between, and that the camera can actually give us, where are the hot spots. And maybe it can be radiometric, and it has various colors for various temperatures. In the beginning, they were just grayscale, and the darker was cooler, and white, lighter was hotter. But it's kind of hard to make out objects. So edge detection is a set of AI algorithms that are beyond my skill set, but that distinguish what is the edge of a desk or a chair or the outline of a body, so that there's less cognitive load on trying to figure out what we're looking at. It's just outlines. It's like a wireframe drawing, so much more intuitive. And the early tests, and this is several years that the see-through team were doing tests before they were so close to market, was compared to your traditional, how much faster might you be on a search and rescue? So there's a known victim, Engine 1 arrives and goes on a search and rescue at the traditional system, and then they use the see-through system. And they were significantly faster. And maybe more importantly, it was their confidence level. Because anyone who's crawled down the hallway in the dark with heat overhead, especially, both as a firefighter and as a company officer in the leadership role, there's a significant amount of stress and cognitive load, and it'd be great to have some of that left over to do more listening. Like, what should I be listening to that I can't be hearing? For the call of a victim who's choking on smoke, but can barely call out. So the intuitive visuals, I think, are going to be helpful.
I wanted to ask you about, because before we came on today, we were speaking a little bit around drones and how I'd seen some innovations around approaches to high-rise firefighting where they were utilizing drones both for the visual but also for the deployment of firefighting media. And one of the things we discussed before we came on was a recent seminar or symposium that you'd been to, where you'd had some insights and perhaps give us some of those insights into how we take to the air. I often think that when we break the drone market and when we break the legislative aspects that are stopping it from truly becoming used everywhere, we'll know about it because someone like Amazon will do it. And there will be drones flying absolutely everywhere in the street, delivering all of our packages in less than an hour from ordering products. How do you see that complementing the work of the first responder?
Yes, it's very much an exciting time. I do a bit of work as an adjunct professor with the University of Cincinnati, and they suggested I go out to a meetup last week that was a Vertical Flight Society symposium. And the Game Developers Conference, blew my mind. Now, this was not as enormous, but also just amazing what is just around the corner. Well, actually, it's here now. Advanced air mobility. So I'm looking forward to giving you some links on the subject. So while I'm there, I see there's a Go Aero prize, a $2 million prize to design and build a safe, portable, robust, autonomy-enabled emergency response flyer.
Whoa.
Well, why not? Right? And the partners include Boeing and NASA and Iridium and a few other folks who are...
That is Iron Man.
Yeah.
That literally is... That literally would be the Iron Man first responder. Somebody in a suit, or even, if it was autonomous, that would be scary. I think people would be worried about technology taking our job, though, if we got to that bit. Although I see a great application for it with wildland firefighting, especially, where our inability to be able to deploy to an area very difficult to access by vehicle.
Well, I'm going to say, as far as taking our jobs, rather than AI and autonomous systems taking our jobs, I think it's those first responders that use advanced technology systems will do a lot more in their domains, just like large language modeling. Will it take some writers' jobs? Well, the writers who aren't using it, but the writers who are using it for, like, do we use spell check when we send a text message? My spelling's not as good as the machine, so I've been using AI for text messaging, unintentionally for a long, long time. So I put a couple of those chats in there because the other one is Jump Arrow, which my understanding is the prototype is like 250 knots, and just enough for one first responder. It's like a 350-pound payload. Now, I did not see this in person, but I did see some other craft that are already on the road. You've got folks like Archer and United partnering to do airport shuttles, like 4 or 6 people, and electric vertical takeoff and landing systems. NASA's done some work on NASA AAM, Advanced Air Mobility and Data. I think DRF, Data Reasoning Fabric. Yeah, here's a good one for you, and you'll pass this along to folks. But along the smart cities systems, how does everything connect when we have large autonomous? So we have self-driving cars. What about when we have self-flying cars? It's really quite close. And as far as the wildland, absolutely. There's a lot of interest in early detection from space, and XPRIZE is running a big challenge right now that includes that. And then, once we identify it, how do we get some retardant or some suppressant on those fires that we should fight? In other words, in the wildland, especially in the Western U.S. and Australia, some parts of Europe, because of suppression efforts for the past 50, 100, 150 years, the forests have become so dense that when there is a fire, then the trees die. Yet we need to burn out the understory to thin the fires so that they're not disastrous fires. They're not so destructive. So there is a need for healthy fires in places where we didn't suppress them in the past. So if you have an autonomous system that could suppress a fire, is it a fire that should be suppressed? Or is it the time of year? Is it still in the spring? And it's going to be a beneficial fire. Or when there's a control burn, put together by, say, the Forest Service Bureau, Land Management, and others who are in the market are in the business of managing the health of the forest and protecting the neighboring communities. When it's time for a control burn, how's the AI going to help us determine when the best time for ignition is? How many resources should we have? And do we have an autonomous system as backup in case there's a spot? A lot of times, the fire brands will go some distance. And if we have an autonomous system, to your point, a drone with some suppressant, that should be beneficial. We'd like to.
Mate, I think it's a really, really exciting time. I think it's a fascinating area to get into. The irony is, I was really excited to come on and have a chat with you this evening. I think I've been left with more questions that I came with, not because you failed to answer any, but it's kind of like we all sit within our own unconscious bias spheres where the things you're just not aware of. So I really look forward to digesting some of those links. I've got a small list of people that I've made, companies and whatnot that I'm probably getting in contact with. I'd probably love to speak to you again in maybe 6 or 8 months' time if you'd be up for it, and give us, a short roundup of what new evolutions we've seen. Because I feel like, again, someone in your position who has the authenticity, you're a little bit of a hybrid person because you've done the thing, you have the authenticity of knowing what you're talking about, and now you clearly have a passion for this.
It's very kind, Pete. I'd love to get back and chat some more. I'd ask, hopefully you or some of your colleagues might come across the pond to the upcoming FDIC show. There'll be probably 35,000 folks together in April in Indianapolis.
I'm having Russ on in the next couple of days. So Russ Timpson, who's doing the High Rise Conference in Indianapolis, he runs that, and then it rolls straight into FDIC. I am literally in the process of trying to source support and funding from the service that I work from to get me out there, because FDIC has been on my list for 3 years now, and I'm still yet to attend.
Well, brilliant. There'd be some folks I'd want to connect you to personally. So I'm supporting the some people might call it the nerd stuff, but I'm supporting the digital innovation posture. And there'll be an extended reality studio there, a command and control section, the Lucas Oil Stadium in particular, where the 9/11 stair climb is on the Friday morning. It's a great pleasure to have been there a number of times, and now to be specifically looking at, hey, could we get one of the flying card teams out there? there is an autonomous vehicle. The Google Waymo team, I believe, is. I see them on the list. They're going to be in Lucas Oil and some other very innovative and progressive teams. So I'd like to get together with you firsthand in Indy in April, and then we'll have a lot more questions, both of us, because it's the same for me. I don't have answers. I have more questions and more imaginings of.
That's beautiful, though, isn't it? To be that eternal student, to be the curious child. I hope I die with questions, because how sad to have lost the desire to learn, because you have the gift of being the eternal student only if you choose to be, because it's a fascinating world out there. Thank you so much for your time, brother. I really, really enjoyed it. Please send my love to the family, and I look forward to sharing some of those links with everyone that's listening.
Right back at you, Pete. Thanks so much. Hope to see you in April.
The Firefighters Podcast was created to recognize, acknowledge, inspire, and hopefully even motivate these incredible individuals who have chosen to be part of the first responder community. Our driving purpose is to create a legacy resource for the current and future generations of firefighters and first responders. We get some incredible feedback from listeners and guests, and as the podcast grows, our desire to create longevity and sustainability means that we are asking for the support of our listeners. If you want to support the podcast, if you want to get discounts to our merchandise, hoodies, clothing, coins, patches, tallies, and also access to all of the incredible documents that get shared with us from our podcast guests and sector leaders, then please head over to our Patreon page, and for just £3 a month, you can support the future of the podcast. Please finally hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on the platform you're listening, and wherever you are in the world, please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.